Hey everybody, welcome. It's Wednesday, and that means we are live for another Masterclass session. Today we're going to be showing power users how to create their own custom points of interest. Now, points of interest are things like a village, a town, a city, capital, ruin, tower, all those kind of things is what we're kind of talking about here. And the way that I'm setting up this stream is into 3 segments. What I'm going to do is we're going to do a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced sections. So these about 20-minute sections each one. And we're going to start with beginner, which is going to be the simplest one, simply because all you're doing is just taking stock art and then just piecing them together. Okay, so let's just go ahead and jump right in with beginner. And first thing is that we have to prep the canvas. And one of the things that I've done is I've made the canvas color a flat off white or a gray color. The reason why that is because blend modes do not work with white and black. Remember that. When you try to use a blend mode on white and black, it doesn't work. And you might want to use blend modes like lights and things like that on your stamps to kind of give it that more extra effect. And you just won't see them on the canvas if it's white or black. So it has to be a gray. And I recommend a lighter gray instead of a darker gray, because what ends up happening is if you use a darker color, what ends up happening is that you start, all your stamps begin to get a little bit darker because you're constantly trying to adjust the brightness to match that pure black in the background. So don't use the black, because then you're going to be fighting the brightness options for the color options. So it's always important to make sure that you always use kind of an off-white or gray. Hey, first-time chatters, both of you, super glad that you're here. I'm super excited about this one. We're making custom assets, so this is super cool. Let's start with the beginner prep. Now that you know a little bit about that part, let's also just get the beginner prep set up so you can kind of see what we're doing here. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what it is. And the process is really, really simple. I break it down into 3 steps, but it can be 3 or 4 or 5. But the first step is to create the terrain. That means you're going to pick a stamp like whether it's a hill, a mountain, a crater, or a lake, or whatever it is, and then you're going to create the terrain. You always build from the ground up. It's always important to build from the ground up. So you build the ground, and don't worry, we're going to actually make this stuff. Not everything is preset. I will actually show you how to go through the tool and make everything as well, so don't get discouraged or anything. Step 2, you're going to add the main structure. That's going to be the biggest structure that's going to be in the point of interest. See, this is a village, and so the main structure is probably going to be a couple huts. After you've made the main structure, then you can add on your details. And some of the details that I added were pretty simple. I put some windmills. It's a village, so there needs to be some food sources. Windmills are a great way to show that. And then I've also added in some trees, and I've done some varying sizes of the trees, and I put them in various layers. I put some trees behind and some trees in front. Layering is super important to create this nice illusion of depth. And then the last thing I added was some light sources on the windows, just simple light sources on the windows to give it that extra bit of pop. Okay, now let's go ahead and make a point of interest ourselves right now. So I'll go into the catalog here. Right now I'm set to Parchment World, but we can switch over to Fantasy World. That's one of the best parts about Pro, is that you can switch between the different styles right here in the left part of the catalog. And we're going to choose something. Now, I'm not going to make the same thing we made in the example above. So I might want to make something a little bit more interesting, like let's maybe make a tower. And a great place to start with towers is to let's maybe make like a frozen tower. And if you guys have suggestions, please let me know. We'll make that too. So what I'll do is maybe let's try to choose the foundation or the landscape. I think a mountain would work well. And then kind of go through the options here. Maybe one of these kind of more rounded mountains would work well. Let's use a snowy one. Let's make like an ice tower. Hey, Typer Zero. Glad that you're here. So we make the terrain first, right? So we have that one. Let's also make some little hills that go around it. What I do with terrain is I try to have one taller terrain feature and then some shorter ones. So we could also throw in a hill. There should be some snowy hills. Perfect. I'm going to scale it down a little bit, and then I'm just going to place them here and there. See how there's some in front and some behind. Kind of remember that. This one's a little dark, so maybe I'll bump the brightness up just a little bit. There we go. Now that we have the first step, which is terrain, we want to get the tower, right? And now the thing important about tower is that we want to choose one. So let's go choose in tower. I'm going to expand all assets so I can kind of see all of my options here. And you can see there's a lot. So remember the step 2, adding your main structure. So let's kind of choose a tower that I like. I kind of like this tower right here. It's kind of broken a little bit, and that's perfect because maybe we can fill it in with like crystals and some other things. Let's put it above like this. I'm going to just transform it a little bit so it'll just fit right on the top. And I think I'll desaturate it so where it's kind of gray, and then I can give it this white color. Or if you want, you can give it that blue color to kind of match in with it. It's up to you. I personally want to just desaturate it and make it white. And then, so now the main structure is done. And now we want to add some details to it. So why don't we go in here? We can type in crystal. I think there is some crystals in here. You can choose any one of these. And I think in heraldry, there is a crystal as well. Let me check. Here it is, heraldry, right here. So let's add some details. What about a crystal hanging above the tower, suspended? And I'm going to bump the saturation up a little bit so it's got a nice color. And one thing that I recommend, I should have mentioned this before, is that you should scale up what you're working on first, so that way it's not blurry. When you scale things down, it blurs a little bit, but that's okay. When you end up scaling it back down to being smaller again, you can export up to like 16K. So it won't be blurry in your export, but it might be blurry in editing. So to avoid the blurriness when you're editing, you always scale it up. And of course, it's blown out of proportion. It looks bad. Don't worry about that. You're going to end up scaling it back down again. You always edit in a larger scale. And then when you're ready for it to be turned into a stamp, then you scale it back down to what it's supposed to be. Okay, so that's the big trick. You always edit large and then add it and scale it down when it's done. Okay, so that's super important to remember that. And also some of you might be wondering like, oh, hey, wait a minute. What happens if we don't have the ability to transfer these stamps from a style to style, from map to map? Don't worry, our incredible team is working on the ability to do that. So looking forward to that. You'll be able to create your own composite stamps, save them, add them to a catalog, move them between styles, whether it's a static stamp that you can't edit or a composite that you can edit. All of those capabilities are coming. So I'm super excited about it. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this stream today, is because we are super close to that. So I'm excited about that. The other thing now is that I want to continue adding more to it. So more details. So let's go ahead and take those crystals again. I kind of like these. I think this jagged color is nice, but what I don't like is the color because it's green. So I could go in and just change the color to this bluish color. Let's desaturate it a little bit so that way it kind of matches with the blue. And I'm just going to place these crystals all along here at the base of the thing, right over here, one right here. Let's scale them down and then put some here. Another one. Let's flip it. Let's flip this around so it's not all the exact same. And put one there. Okay. And now you have like these spiky crystals. It also adds as like a defensive measure. Other things you can do to give it more detail is you can put stuff behind. Remember I mentioned that layering trick, putting it behind. But to show depth, you can make it a little bit darker to show that it's behind it, right? So one thing you can do is you can take these stamps, bring the brightness up a little bit, and then that way these ones are darker. And then what it does is it creates that illusion of depth. So you can always do that trick too, but just be careful not to make them too dark because they might be too dark against a darker texture. So depth using that is a great trick right there. All right. So there is our crystal tower. Super easy to make. You just create group and we're going to call it crystal tower. And then when you scale it down, and now you have it to this size. Now, I personally think we should add just a little bit more real quick before we move on to the next one. And that is to add a light source. Couple options here. You can create an object shadow. Two options. You can just take an object shadow. So just go to shadow, custom object shadow, and just choose like a pinkish color. Bump the intensity up. And then you have your own blur right there. You can also take a light source. Just put it right on top, all the way up. And then just switch the color to get that pinkish color. And then put it right on top of it. And now your point point of interest has a nice shiny color to it, a nice shiny light source to it. Great thing. Always adding in light sources is a really great way to make the POI pop out. And believe me, a light source does exactly that. So creating a point of interest is not complex. It's all about just following a method. You always build from the ground up. Don't build the tower first and then the crystal or whatever. Start with the features of the landscape, then continue building up with the main structure. And then once all of those components are done, then you can add in the details on all of the terrain and the buildings that you've created. So follow that method and you probably won't have any trouble putting them together. So it's pretty simple stuff. And that same concept kind of exists whether you're making a battle map composition as well. Obviously not the terrain, but you follow a process. You place down the biggest stamps and then you place the smaller stamps that are going to be detail. So you follow this method, super easy to do. And you can do it with isometric, all kinds of stuff. So there's tons of ways that you can use making those composites. Let's see here. We've only gone 11 minutes in. Let's make either one or two more composites. Let's make something like, let's see here. Anyone have any suggestions? If not, I can come up with one. Oh, Woey, I'm so glad that you're here, by the way. I just saw that you're in there. Awesome. Loving it. Underwater. That's a great one. I like that idea. So let's see here. Let's do a isometric type of view of stamp. I think this works over well. Let's also place down the texture itself that I want to use for underwater. That's important because the blend mode won't seem like it won't do much unless we have that. So I'll choose this texture. We're going to choose background, and I think I'll choose a square. I'm going to go like this, place it down. We're going to go apply. Here's our water right here. And then I can take this stamp right here and put it right on top. Now, there are tons of options that you can do when you're placing together an underwater stamp. One of the coolest tricks that I've noticed is that one, you can use the blend mode luminosity, which for some reason, oh, there's a clipping mask on it. That's bizarre. There you go. You got luminosity right here. And then you can bump the contrast down a little bit. And then let's bring the brightness down, and it kind of looks like it's underwater a little bit. Now, the cool trick is that what's cool is to show the depth, because sometimes it's hard to tell, like, is this structure underwater or is it above the water and it's just the same color as the water? The way to do this nice little trick is to put something on top of it, above it, that's above the water, and then have the main structure be below the water. That's kind of one trick that I do. Hey, raids, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for the raid. Appreciate you. Awesome, awesome. All these first-time chatters. Awesome. Loving it. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you guys. So we'll take another tower, and we're going to put that on top. And the tower is like maybe a way that you kind of teleport to go onto it. So I'm going to place this tower. I'm going to place it right on top. Thank you. I appreciate everyone here. Thank you so much. So I'll place this underwater. I'm going to put this down in the most bottom layer, -5, and put this one on the very top, or at least one above. And then what I'll do next is take like maybe the swirl, those swirl pools, or a whirl. I think it's a whirl. Let's look it up instead. I don't want to have to flip through it. Whirl. Let's take a whirlpool, put that right on top of it, and make sure it's on the right layer as well. And then put this on top of the whirl. The swirl thing right on top. And then what you kind of have here is this illusion of something being below the water and then something above the water, and that way it looks like there's depth there. Hey, Dai Ameno, welcome. Glad that you're here. You see how easy it is? So it's the trick is that to have something above and below the water, that doesn't mean that you have to, but I think this perfectly conveys that there's something underwater. The other thing that you can do is you can also use like the line tool. Just take a path and then use a white path set to blur. And then I'm just going to put one down real quick to see what it looks like. And then what you can do is bring the opacity down, bring the size down, and then you can also take that path that we have right there and just kind of place it like this. And this will continue adding in some of the effect of the swirl goes around to it. And then you can also put a ship there as well. So if I want, I can put in ship or boat. I can put a ship, and then I'm going to put this up a layer, make sure it's above it, and then I can just put a ship just right on top like that. And then, of course, you can take that same path tool and just kind of put a little path underneath it to show that there's some wake, like that. So kind of some cool tricks there that you can kind of do that. And again, you can also add in a light source to kind of give it that extra oomph to it. Remember, I always talk about that. And we can stick with a theme. So we'll go with the color, we'll go U, we'll make it this bluish color, and then we can have this nice blue light at the entrance of the tower. And then you select all, create group, and then underwater city or whatever you want to call it, create. There you go. Now you have an isometric one that's underwater. So just remember that you want the continuity, right? Don't have some of your POIs on your map be all front-facing or what's called orthographic. Like right here, these are front-facing orthographic. There's no perspective whatsoever. This is isometric. There's no perspective, but it shows more than just one face, so it's not orthographic. Just make sure that when you are placing down or creating these POIs, make sure they're all in the similar style, right? Make sure they're all either front-facing orthographic or they're all isometric. What happens is there becomes this continuity issue where some are isometric and some aren't. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but just for the sake of continuity with the map, so it's easier for the viewer's eye or your player's eyes, always be sure to kind of, you know, try to keep that continuity with that style. Where are we at for time? 3:16, awesome. I don't think there's enough time to make another one right now. So what I'll do is I'll quickly save and then we'll move on to intermediate. I think everyone kind of gets the idea on how to put together compositions with existing stamps. Ground up, main structure, details. You start with the biggest ones and then could you do this with towns and for a larger map? Sure, you could totally do that. Absolutely. And if this is a stream that you guys like, you should let me know because we can turn this into a whole series. And with composites coming out as an option, I'll end up making a ton. And I'll show you guys all the various styles from Parchment, Watercolor. We can make composites for anything, including monster tokens, including character tokens. All kinds of things can be made with composites. So if this is something you like, we'll make sure to turn this into an ongoing masterclass episodes where we make all kinds of compositions. So I'm super excited about that. But there's not enough time to make any more in this, so we're going to switch over to Parchment. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all these and lock them so I don't accidentally select them. Let's go into intermediate. Now with intermediate, what defines intermediate in comparison to beginner is that you're going to be creating your own stamps instead of using the already pre-existing stock art. Now, there are a couple things here. First thing is that we got to prep. And the first thing we got to prep is knowing what color the stroke is. The color of the stroke of currently exists for Parchment stamps for that outline is 30190A. Okay? That's the number or the hex number for the color that you want to use for your stroke. The other thing you want to use is your fill is a clipping mask because that's exactly what the current stock Parchment art uses is a clipping mask with that color stroke, okay? So this is what defines intermediate. You're creating your own stuff. Now, remember what we talked about. You always want to edit at the highest or a larger scale before you edit it. And there's a big lesson that you should learn about this is that this is a very important pro tip. Do not go wild on details because you probably won't be able to see them. You want to think very minimalist about world and Parchment world icons because they're not big, they're tiny, right? See how small this stamp is at 100%? There's not a lot of room for details and you'd have to zoom in mega. So the trick is not to show details, okay? I mean, you can add details, but there's bare minimum. Look at the stamp right here. See, it's just a couple lines. Now we're going to bump that up a little bit and I'm not going to follow this style perfectly. I don't personally like the outline stroke around the stamp. I find that to be annoying, especially when you're stacking stamps on top of each other. So I'm not going to make that outline. I'm going to make my own stamp that doesn't have that outline, okay? Important stuff to know there. One thing you should also do when you're making your own custom POIs is to turn on the grid. Mine is set to 80 and set to a square. And the reason why I'm using that is because I'm going to use snap to grid so that my shapes are coming together. Step one is you're going to make the basic shape. So let's go to the catalog. I'm going to go over to, I think, my favorites here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose snap to grid. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like when I place down a shape. Oopsie. Fill, we want the fill, there we go, to be clipping mask. And I've got the opacity set down. There we go. Okay, let me zoom in so you can take a look at it. So clipping mask for fill, and you've got that same color for the parchment. Okay, so that's the step. Now, the way that I put together my own custom POIs is by making the basic shapes, step 1. Don't even worry about the terrain or anything like that. Let's just focus on making the structure. And what I'll do is I'm going to mimic this village right here, but I'm going to make it myself with my own style, my own design, my own stuff. And this is a great practice, is to make stuff that already exists. Maybe you're like, well, I don't like this stamp the way that it is. I'm going to make it my own. You can totally do that. So start with basic shapes. So I'm going to create the basic structure in the front. I'll make a structure here, and then I'll also make maybe a taller one and a little bit bigger one right here. Let's go ahead and move this over to the center here and make sure that it lines up with the grid. You're starting with your basic shapes. Okay, so those are the basic shapes. Now I'll move on to the next part, which is I'm going to make some roofs. And I'm going to use the pen for this instead of a rectangle, circle, or polygon. And the reason why is because I can point and click to create these shapes. Okay, so here's the basic roof shape. This is called an open gable. Okay, now roofs can also be facing the other way, where the open gable is on the other side. So if I go over here, this is the roof at that other angle. So that's up to you on what angle you want the roofs to be, whether the gables are facing towards you or the gables are facing off to the side. And I'll show you how to make it look like that's a roof, okay? We'll get to that. So let's put a roof on the main building, and I'm going to make a unique roof instead of just your open gable regular triangle. So I'll start by creating a little bit of an overhang going across like this. And what I can do here is that I can actually go like this and rotate to create this interesting shape. So I can go in here. Oopsie, my mistake. We're going to go in here, here. We're going to rotate like this. Oopsie, my mistake. One more, one more. You know what? Actually, let's go with that other design. Let's go with here, here, one here. There we go. My mistake. Two in. Oopsie, I think I might have made that wrong. Oh, I see why I'm using... I used the wrong tool. My mistake. There we go. I was using the shape. Here we go. Across. There we go. Silly me. Let's go 2 in. Rotate. Go across here. 2 in. Create that curve. Press enter. There's that curve there. Okay. That's good. And you know what's really nice too is don't make it exactly perfect. Some little mistakes like that are nice because you want it to have this hand-drawn look. And so some minor little mistakes gives it that hand-drawn look. And we'll add details later to give it a more hand-drawn look as well. Don't worry. So let's add a secondary roof piece like this. Oopsie, wrong one. Did it again. Let's create a second roof piece right here. Oopsie, my mistake. All the way over here. Enter. No, I think I did that wrong. There we go. Plus, there we go. A second roof piece. Let's rotate it a little bit this way. Lined up. There we go. Now we have that extra roof size. And then on these ones, we'll make a really tall pitched roof. And oopsie, that didn't stick there. We'll press enter and do that again. Remember, you just start with the basic shapes. A roof, and then this one will have a shorter incline. There we go. Now we have those pieces together. And then what I'll do from here is I'll go ahead and group these pieces. So I'm going to create group. I'm going to place this one behind. There we go. We're going to create group. And we're going to create group. Okay. And then these are going to go behind. There we go. And it's okay to have them be a little bit behind. You see how they're not perfectly lined up straight? Like this one right here isn't perfectly lined up. It's okay to have them be different. Looks like they're further back from each other. That's a good step right there. Okay, now once you've done the basic shapes, then you can start adding in some details. And the way that I kind of go about doing this is adding in some extra stuff. So for instance, maybe I want to take the line tool and I want to create some kind of base for it. So I press enter. Let's make this a little bit thicker. It is the base of the village, so I'll make it a little bit thicker. like this at the bottom. And don't worry, we're going to fix a lot of this stuff. So we'll start with that. And then we can add in some other elements that should make it more interesting. For instance, maybe I want to throw in some windows. Maybe I want to throw in a door. All of those things are super helpful. So I'm going to turn off snap to grid for now so I don't accidentally force the snap. Let's go ahead and create some windows. Plus, there's a window there. We can also add in a chimney. Let's go ahead and throw in a chimney as well. Plus, there you go, a chimney. And if you don't like it, you can always push it further down like this. There's a chimney there. You got a window right here popping out. You can copy and paste that window, put it right here. Let's copy, paste, and then flip it, and then put another window right here, a little further down, right there. That's fine. Actually, you know what? Let's put it down a layer so it'll be behind. There we go. Cool. Then you have some windows. You have that. Let's also make a door. So we'll turn the stroke off, turn the fill, switch it over to color, and we're just going to punch in that number. Remember that magic number? It's going to be 30190A. Oopsie, did it not work? Let me double check here. Oh, I see. Didn't even work. We'll do it again. 30190A. There we go. Cool. I think we got the color. Awesome. That's our fill. And now I'm just going to make a door that can also be used as windows. And I'm going to turn that snap to grid back on to make sure that I'm getting it right here. Create this shape here. There we go. Okay. I'm going to create group. And let's just scale the door down and put it up a layer. There we go. So we can put the door. Now let me talk about a little bit about composition when you're putting these things together. And the trick is to have a mix between both symmetrical and asymmetrical elements. Notice that the house in front of us, without the windows and the chimney, are symmetrical, right? They're about symmetrical. And then other elements are not symmetrical. For instance, because this building is symmetrical, I can move the door over to the side to break up the symmetry. I can also copy and paste, and then I can go ahead and bring that down and then create some windows like that. I can also create some windows up at the top as well. Maybe I want to create some windows on the top. And so I'll go in here. I'm going to open these two up, select them both, bring the fill up, and then just place this right here. And now I've got a window right here as well. And it doesn't have to be centered perfectly. You can move it to the side like that. This is what's called a dormer. And just for the sake of make it more interesting, I'm just going to line up the door and that dormer right there. So they lined up. Let's continue adding more windows. We can even add some more doors to some of the buildings. I'm just going to scale it down, copy, paste. In fact, one right there. And then we can put in a window right here. Okay, and then we can also take these two, copy, paste. Bring these up, and I'm going to put these two little windows right in here like that. There we go. Okay, and you can see that the piece is starting to come together as you're starting to add elements, but it still doesn't look right. There's still so much to add, right? So next, what I end up doing is that a lot of the line work is super straight and it doesn't have that hand-drawn look. So let's fix that problem by taking a path and just causing some of the lines to bleed and get a little bigger. So I'll show you some cool tricks. For starters, we can build a line that goes across. This can kind of act. Oopsie, let's bring that up a layer. My mistake. Up, up, up. There we go. Let's put some lines going across, and I'm hand drawing it. Don't worry if it's off a little bit. That's okay. I want there to be some mistakes. I don't want it to be perfect. And I'll have to make some adjustments here. I'm going to rotate those a little bit. I'm going to move the window as well. There we go. We'll move it to there. And let's make it a little bit smaller too. There we go. That looks a little better. I'm just going to keep adding details. I'm going to maybe make the line a little bit thicker in that corner there. I'll probably add a little line here. Let's go ahead and make some stairs right here. Kind of go up to it. Let's add a little bit of line here. Add a line here. Add a line here. Let's also continue adding a little bit here, here, Just adding in these little bit of details. And this is how you're going to make sure that this doesn't look too perfect. It's just a way to kind of break up the line work a little bit here. And that way it's not perfectly straight. And just a little bit of just these little knobs right here. Little tiny little things like that are helpful. Don't worry about doing too many little details. Great things are like underneath windows to create like a windowsill. You can also create this illusion of like a frame around the door if you want, or across like that if you want. All kinds of interesting things that you can do to kind of make your structure more interesting. Let's go ahead and create another line that goes across here. So now you've kind of got those things together. Oh, let's fix this little nub right there. I don't want it to show up too much. And let's also add a little line here and here. Okay. Now, the next step is that we want to add some extra things to it to give it that extra oomph. Let's also break up the building a little bit. Let's see here. Let's add a couple more details. Show you another really cool trick I think you might like. If you go into that gear, I want to create this illusion of maybe some like plaster is falling off. And so what I'll do is I'll take the opacity down like this, and I'm going to do this to kind of create these like little plaster. And you don't put them on the doors, you don't put them on the roofs, you put them on the walls. So now you have some nice little effects like that. You can also add in all kinds of fun things. There's just so many ways that you can do this. We can also make like segment the house a little bit to show different floors. So maybe I want to show that there's another floor here. So I can go in across like this and create another line. That's going to represent another floor. And you can bring the opacity up. So you want to show this is a 2-story building. So let's show that there's an extra floor there. So there's that. So lots of cool little tricks that you can kind of do here to make it look good. All right, let's go ahead and save 132 changes, and let's go throw in some other details using alpha textures. Where are we at for time? Ooh, 3:32, 8 more minutes left for this section. So let's go ahead and add in some details using alpha textures, because right now, what we're looking at is that maybe we want to add a couple more details. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this one right here. I'm going to copy that roof, paste it like this, and I'm going to turn off my stroke. And then I'm going to go into the catalog for textures, and I'm going to choose a texture in Parchment World called Waves. So Parchment World, Waves. And these waves right here can act as a very nice kind of structure for the roof pieces to add the tiling. If we bring the scale up a little bit, and now you have some nice tiling there. So all you have to do is just open up the roof pieces, select the 2 roof pieces, copy, paste. I can turn the stroke off. I can just click this, and then there are those pieces. They go right on like that. To add those roof pieces, same thing here. I can copy, paste. Again, go back to that roof piece, put it right on top, right there. So now you have some roof pieces. Now, if that doesn't look right, you know that you can delete some sections of the roof as well to make it look more interesting. So you can make some pretty cool stuff with it. The other details that you can add is that you can go ahead and take all of these shapes, copy, paste, and then let's do this again, except for this time, I'm going to choose a different texture. I'm going to choose dirt. And dirt, bring the scale up, and you're going to see there's some nice dirt artifacts. I'm going to push this up a layer, and then you can get some dirt artifacts showing up in there as well. Those are the final little details, so we can copy, paste, switch back to dirt, put it right there, make sure it's up a layer. There you go. And you got some dirt inside of there. And then again, copy, paste, do it all over again, bring it up a layer, and then you have that dirt effect. So you can do lots of little details in there to kind of make it more interesting. So now, one thing you can also do is once you've finished placing it, you can also paint it, right? It's set to the BG, it's set to the FG layer, so you can paint it whatever you want. So let's go to Parchment World here. One thing that I recommend is that these off-whites are a neutral color, so you can paint the walls these off-white colors, and then whatever color you choose for the roof, it will still look good. So little secret there. Neutral colors work with other colors that aren't neutral. So what I'll end up doing here is I'm just going to use the brush set to FG layer, and I'm just going to go across here and just go apply. Oopsie, set to FG layer. I'll go to apply. Check this out. I'm just going to go again, apply, apply. There you go. Now you have some white there. Let's go use some various colors. Now check this out. So any color works. Now when you're brushing in, I'm going to use this circle brush. I'm going to turn the softness off. And I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to zoom in so it's easy to see. And then I'm just going to paint in the color here. And we'll also paint in the other stuff that I missed as well. I see I missed some stuff. So we'll go in, paint this blue. Now you don't have to paint too. You can also just make the color of the roof blue and white. You don't have to do that. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So we'll go ahead and add in here. Okay, oopsie, these would actually be blue because this is roof right here. My bad. There you go. Now let's take a step back and kind of look at it. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. So blue and white works just fine. You can use blue and red. You'd be surprised. Any color generally seems to work, in my opinion, with it. It doesn't matter. Pink, blue, purples, whatever color that you want, you can do that. It really doesn't matter. There you go. See, it doesn't matter. You can change it whatever color you want. It's still going to look good. So what I'll do now is I can go in back into here and I can grab the first shape, and instead of a fill clipping mask, I can just fill it in with whatever color of the roof that I want. Now look carefully here. I can move it and you'll notice that the red of that roof is still there. So you don't have to paint everything. You could just not use the clipping mask fill and just use a parchment texture. That's it. So super easy making these parchment things. It's super easy. You just start with the main shapes. Then after that, you'll go in with the line tool, add details. Then you can put in alphas. And remember, we're going to create a group. I'm going to make it real small so that you can see the scale. I want you to look at it. See the scale here? It's tiny and you can barely see those details. That's why it's important not to edit at this scale. Why it's important to edit at a much larger scale and then scale it down. Again, it's going to be blurry when you look at it because, again, it's only 4K editing resolution, but you can export up to 16K. Okay, so that's just the real big thing that you have to kind of keep in mind there. There we go. So super easy to make. I'm going to save it and we're going to move on to the more complex stuff. And I'll show you how to put this together. All right, we still got a majority of people following through and watching. Lots of cool stuff that you can do. I really recommend that you experiment. You can even make isometric parchment stamps as well. And oh, there is one other thing that I wanted to mention. You can also create this illusion of shadows, by the way. I want to show this as well. Cool little trick here, just so that you know here. I want to show this because this is kind of an interesting trick. Forgot to mention this. Let's go back to shape, fill, clipping mask. Check this out. I want to show this because this is super important. But you can create the illusion of shadows by just taking this gray path right here. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to bring it to blur, bring the size all the way up, bring the blur all the way up. I'm going to show you a cool trick on how to create this illusion of shadow work on the stamp. So you'll like this. So I'm just going to go in here like this. Let's go here. I want to create this illusion of a shadow right here. And then a shadow right here. And then maybe I want to put a shadow underneath to show that the thing pops out there. There you go. And maybe another shadow right here to show that there's a roof that kind of goes out. And what's cool about that, adding in those shadows, is that no matter what color I fill it in with, it doesn't matter what color I fill it in with, those shadows will still be there. So that's the cool thing. So if I want it to be a flat color, or I want to make it this grayish color, or if I want to go with this color, whatever your choices are, that shadow work will be there, giving it that extra bit of little bit of pop to it. Nice little trick there. Sorry, I forgot to kind of mention that bit. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Now, there isn't much prepping for advanced. Now that we've gone through intermediate, you've kind of noticed the kind of steps that you kind of have to go through. So now the advanced reason why this next part is a little bit more advanced is because we're going to be using textures from either the Watercolor Battlemap style or the fantasy battle map style. Now, I personally, after working with fantasy battle maps, find that the watercolor battle map style works a lot better with the, because if you're going to be using stock inkarnate landscape terrain like trees and mountains and stuff like that, I recommend that you use watercolor battle map because it has that similar kind of look to it. Like if I take this stamp over here and I look over here at this, it's a similar style, thick line work. There is not a lot of super amount of contrast in the textures. They kind of have this more kind of desaturated, decontrasted kind of look to it. And so I feel that that style probably works a little better. But what makes this so advanced is that you're going to be using various textures and stroke stuff and various colors and stuff to kind of make your composite. And so it requires a little more skill than Parchment, because Parchment is just a clipping mask or just a flat color or a texture that you put on top of it. With this one, you have to be a little bit more advanced. You have to go through and not also you have to put the composition together to make the colors work and to make sure that it overall fits in with whatever map that you're going to be putting these stamps on. So let's jump in, and the concept remains the same. Let's make a castle of some kind, okay? So I'll go in and I'm going to choose a color that's going to be black for now. We can change the color as we... Is it possible for two people to customize a map at the same time? It is not actually capable at this time. There's all these saving issues that happens when you do that. You could corrupt the map and ruin it. So I don't recommend that you work on the map on two separate devices. You just have to work on it one at a time. I'm sorry to say we don't have that co-op mode yet. That'd be cool though. I like that. Okay, let's jump right in. First, I'm going to choose a square or a rectangle. I'm going to choose a fill. I'm going to choose a texture. We're going to go over to Watercolor Battle Maps. And I'm going to use a, let's see here. I like this texture right here, this rough stone floor light. Let's try that. And we're going to turn Snap to Grid on. And we're going to create the basic shapes first. So we're going to make a castle. Oopsie, let's turn that blur off. There you go. And I think the opacity's got to go up. Let's change the scale. Let's change the scale of the stroke as well. There we go. Okay. I'm going to scale this up, and I want to show you a kind of a cool trick here. Let's actually redo it. Let's scale it up so it's a little bit bigger. I want to show you a cool trick here. One thing you'll notice is that stone, the edges are really straight while the stone is not straight, right? It has these edges. So a cool little trick that you can do to make the stone pop out more is to actually use the shape tool, go in, use the paintbrush, smallest size. This is important. You do have to make sure that the stamp is a little bit bigger because remember, the brush size only goes up to 5. Make sure that you have, or down to 5. It doesn't get any smaller than that. You're going to merge the shapes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for stones that are popping out a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll just create these little bumps right here. And I'm going to create this illusion that the stone is kind of popping out a little bit. You don't have to do too much, just enough to kind of create this illusion that they're stone. And that you do it wherever stones are kind of popping off to the side a little bit there. What this will do is it's going to create this nice illusion of roughness instead of this straight line that you're kind of seeing here. So I'll go ahead and add a little bit here and there. Don't try to overdo it because then it looks odd. So just little tiny bits here and there. There we go. Let's take a step back. And then I'm going to bring the stroke size down a little bit more. There we go. Okay. And now you have your shape there for your castle. All right, let's go ahead and make another one. Let's make some towers. We'll put a tower there. And I'm going to copy and paste it. Let's do the next one. Let's go ahead and create this next part. Actually, let's make it all out of wood. My mistake. Let's see here. What other elements do I want to add here? Let's just work on one tower first. My mistake. Let's go with changing the texture. Let's use wood. A lot of times battlements at the top of a tower or along the wall walk are made out of wood. It's called temporary battlements. And you usually, when a siege takes place, is you'll make these temporary wooden battlements because they're easy to take apart and put back together again and all that stuff. So defenders would very often use wood on the battlements, even though the rest of the castle might be made of stone. Cool little trick there. Okay, let's go type in wood. My bad. I'm kind of looking around aimlessly for it. And let's use this wood right here. Let's use this one right here. Kind of a desaturated look. And I'm going to create a series of shapes. Enter. Let's use a square here. You know what? That's a little too big. I'm kind of noticing it. Let's go make it half that size. Oopsie, my mistake. Undo. Let's do this instead. There we go. Just want to get the shape right. Plus that one. Let's put another one here, right here. Let's do this one. There we go. Let's keep making a bunch of shapes with it. Oh, okay. Let's call it there. Good for now. There we go. That's that shape. Let's go ahead and add some crenellations to this castle part. So I'll go back to square. I'm going to start at each end just in case your number is uneven. And we're going to create a series of crenellations. Oopsie, my mistake. You want to go down farther enough so that it actually merges with the shape. So we're creating some crenellations. 3, 4, there we go, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And there's going to be a little open part right here so that defenders can throw down barrels and stuff. So you've got those crenellations. So that looks good. We're doing all right so far. Okay, got those crenellations. There's no crenellations needed on this piece, so we'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and bring this down. I'm kind of running out of room here. And make sure that it is set up to the grid. I want to make sure it's all lined up. Okay, there we go, lined up. Now let's go ahead and make some roof pieces. Right now, you don't have to worry about making the selection for it. Just kind of put it together first. Enter, plus. Okay, and now we can go in and kind of decide which piece we want to be the roof. And there's a lot of different options that you can choose from. Like you could have like this interesting kind of red roof texture here. You could give it this kind of paneling light color to make it this wood looking one. You could, there's a ton of options here. Lots of different stuff that you can kind of use. Maybe you want this kind of tiled look to it. Maybe you want this one. So there's all these kind of options that you can kind of choose from that you want to make it for what you want. So I can bring the scale down like this, and maybe I want to change the color to a different color if I want. Maybe I want it to be a bluish color, so I can bump up the saturation, bump the contrast, and then change the hue to find that color that I want. So I can add in that blue color, and I'll just go back to saturation. I can do that. Lots of different things that you can do there. A little roof piece. There we go. And then I can go ahead and copy and paste over to here, and now we can kind of snap these together. So I'll go ahead and push this up a layer, push this one up a layer. We're going to make the symmetrical part, which is like the castle part, and then, or the wall part, and then we'll add in asymmetrical elements. Remember I talked about mixing symmetrical and asymmetrical elements. One thing I noticed about this one, it's a little high up, so I'm going to remove some of this. So I'm going to go down here like this, go here, merge shapes, subtract. Let's see where that looks like here when I go here. Yeah, I think that looks a little better. And what I will do is I'll make this a little bit darker so the contrast of those towers pops out a little bit more. There we go. You can use whatever roof settings that you want here. So now that we have that, let's also add in maybe like a foundation, and let's use a line to do this. So I'll go to pen, choose this. We're going to use this stone right here, stone wall. This is going to act as the base for it. So I'll go across here, press enter. There's a nice base there. Actually, I don't really like how far apart that is. So let's do it right here. That looks better, much better. And then I can change the size of the scale to create this nice thick foundation part right here. There we go. See, it's starting to slowly kind of come together. And then I can add in some extra details as well. Like I want to add some flourishings to it. And I also want to create maybe another piece up top for it. So I could always take this piece right here, make it a little bit bigger, and I'll change it over to stone. Let's do this. We'll go back down a layer. Let's change that scale. And then remember I talked about to show the side view. So I will go in right here. Let's make sure that it's snapped to grid a little bit. Let's see here. Oh, I think that should be good. Let's turn snap to grid off. I'm going to choose this blue one right here. Square. Remember I talked about making a roof that is... Oopsie, that is a subtract. My bad. Line these up, and you can create a roof that's like at a side angle. Like this. So we'll do this one. There we go. So you got a roof at that angle. Go ahead and sign this up right here. So you got that. And then you can also create like... I think it's called an Oriole. Let me see if I can figure out how to make it real quick. Let's go here. Wood, snap to grid. There's that piece. And then we'll make another one with a pen to make the roof. Go up like this. There you go. Plus, and then let's see here. Let's make the bottom part out of stone. Press enter. There you go. And then what I'll do is I'm going to select this, create group. This is going to act as like an Oriole, so I'll bring the scale up a little bit and just place that right. Let's turn off the snap to grid. So now I have a nice little Oriole there. And then I can put another Oriole on somewhere on the tower here, like right here, I think should look good. There we go. There we go. So you got some towers there. And I'm not going to put that another Oriole on the other side. I'm only going to put one on this side so that way it's a little bit different. Okay, so you've got that pieces together, and we're going to end up scaling and changing a lot. So there's still a lot to do. This is why it's advanced. There's so much more that you have to put into it. Right now, I don't even like the way it looks right now, personally. But as we keep adding more and more details, it'll get better. That's kind of the trick. You just have to have patience. You're generally not going to like your creation right away. It's just something that I've noticed personally. I never end up liking it. So you just have to have patience and just kind of keep going with it. Keep building, keep creating. So let's add some details to it. So I'll put like a wooden piece across here. Let's put it up a layer. I'm going to copy paste, put another one right here. Let's go up a layer. There we go. So we're going to start adding in some details here. Put this one in right here. There we go. Let's push this Oriole further up. There we go. So we're just going to keep adding all these little details to make it make it a little better. That's the trick. You just got to keep adding more and more and more and more and more details as you go. But again, not too much, because remember, it's just the tool, well, you're going to be scaling it down. So it won't work that well if you do too much. Let's go ahead and add one here. There you go. So we're kind of piecing it together. More and more pieces are coming together, adding in those ugly black lines. Just keep adding in more and more stuff to make it come together. Here, right? Let's see here. I can also just take this piece right here. I can just take, let's see here. I'm going to take these two. I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to delete this piece underneath. And then I'm going to group these, create group. And then these can act as like dormers. And I'm going to scale them down a little bit. There we go. Got some dormers here. Copy, paste. Let's put 3 of them. Copy, paste, copy, paste. And then we can also put like a dormer here on this tower, because there is none on this tower. There's this Oriole over here. We'll put this on this tower. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this texture just a little bit darker so that way that dormer pops out a little bit. Okay, there we go. Got some dormers. I'm going to make sure that these are separated fairly well. There we go. So we're adding more and more detail. Let's quickly save it. You guys are starting to get the idea and kind of how to put these things together. We're going to add more and more and more to it. Again, this is why it's the advanced part. You just have to keep adding stuff to it, but remember, not too much detail. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go add in some doors and windows. I think this will help to kind of figure out what further details to do. And just like before, I'm just going to use this wood right here, but I'm going to use a fill color black. Now, you don't have to do this, by the way. It's up to you. I'm going to snap to grid like I did before. Create my door. Here we go. And this is my window. And you don't have to use wood for your windows. You could use a stone as well. So you could go in here and maybe you want to use like a stone. I think what you can do is you can actually desaturate this so that it has a kind of a grayish look. And then that way It'll fit in. And I'm going to put, this is the symmetrical part. I'm going to have the door be in the center. Okay, and then I'm going to copy, paste, and I'll start making some windows. And we'll start with these up here. I'll turn off snap to grid so that they don't keep getting selected. And I still don't even like the way this looks. You just have to have patience. Oh, you know what? Let's go back to wood. My mistake. There we go. There we go. Looks good. Copy, paste. In fact, I think I might put 3. I might even put 3 on here. Let's do 3. That might look more interesting, right? Okay. Look, if that's a bathroom over there, you got to be able to air it out, okay? Otherwise, it's going to smell funky, right? And then we'll put 2 on this one instead. There you go. All right, looks good. Let's see here. I think we can do a little bit more spacing here. There we go. Line those up. It's coming together. Slowly but surely, piece by piece, it comes together. Let's go ahead and add in some other detail stuff. Like sometimes you can throw in some interesting... let's see here. I'll show you this cool trick here. 1 second. Let's turn merge shape off. And I'm going to add some extra details on here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a detail right here like this. Oop, let's turn that fill off. There we go. We can add in just these extra little details. Like we can put in a little piece right there like that. I can copy and paste, put another one in like this. Like that. If it's too big, you can make it smaller. Or if you want, you can just change the shape to where it fits like this. Up to you. All kinds of fun things that you can do. Change the shape up. You can add all kinds of cool stuff. We need to add some windows to the to this stuff up here. So let's make an even smaller window right here. Copy paste. Put another window right here. Copy paste another window right here. Copy paste even more windows in here. It's starting to come together. Let's go ahead and take a step back from it real quick. Just see how we're doing here. Take a step back. Yeah, so far so good. It's all coming together. Just takes a little bit of time. Okay, let's add in some stairs. Let's see here. I think I like these stairs here, and I'm going to flip them upside down like this. Place them right here. So you got some stairs that are going up into the building, and I'll bring this brightness down a little bit so it looks like it's receding into the structure a little bit. So now you have some stairs kind of leading into there. Okay, let's keep adding more and more details to it. Let's add in, let's take this same kind of texture right here, this same line right here, and let's add in some floors for the towers. So I'll add in some floors here. So let's put a floor here. Copy, paste, put another floor right here. There we go, that looks good. I'm gonna copy, paste, put them over here. And what I'll do is I'll use the grid to line them up, so that way I can kind of see it better. That works good. Yep, add in some archer windows. And the way that you can create these are pretty simple. We can just use this shape right here. And we're gonna use this, and we're gonna create some arrow slits. And the way that you do this is we're going to bring this way down right here like this. And then you're going to have some arrow slits. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the scale down. I'm going to turn this down, and then you can add in those arrow slits. And to show that there's a stairwell going from one thing to another, you can always take the windows and stagger them like this to create this illusion that there's a staircase going up because it's a stairwell tower, right? And I don't even put windows on the bottom parts because it becomes a defensive problem unless they're so small. And the same thing here, right? I'll just place some here. You can change it up too. Don't always have the exact same arrangement. Maybe I have 2 at the top of that one and then put another one right here like that. So change it up a little bit to make it more interesting. Otherwise it just doesn't look very good. So it's a nice little trick that you can throw in there. So cool little trick there. Let's also copy and paste and put one right here, one right here. Let's also put one right across, going across this one. Just want to add in as many of these details as possible. Go up a layer so that make sure that this goes behind. There we go. Oopsie. Push these up. There we go. Yep, no windows on the first floor. Defensive issue right there, right? So we'll copy and paste. Let's make these that grayish color we talked about. I'll bring the scale up a little bit. I'm going to copy and paste here. Okay. And then we can do the same thing here, only I'm going to bring the brightness down a little bit, and then we want to be able to show floors as well on the main structure. So I'll build another line that goes across like this. Oopsie, the stroke went down. There we go. Oopsie, and let's go down a layer as well. There we go. Same thing, copy, paste. You can show different floors. And then once you've designated the floors, you can also decide what windows, where to put the windows. And you can also add in some extra little details that are kind of fun. I'll check this out. You can go in and then maybe create like, oopsie, wrong one. There we go. And let's also push it down a layer. There we go. You can copy and paste. You can break up the segments. So there's different segments of the castle. That's kind of helpful. Let's go ahead and take another window. Oopsie. Let's do this one real quick. All the way across. There we go. Oopsie. Really got to favorite my my pads. There we go. Okay, like those pieces look good. Now that we have that, now we can go in and kind of throw in our windows. So let's maybe put 2 centered right here. When it comes to defenses, maybe it's a good idea to put 3 right over the entrance, right? So that defenders can shoot arrows through the loop. And we can just put 1 solo one over here. Let's also put some over here. Some arrow slits here. Okay, and then we're not going to put any on the base floor. There we go. And I'm going to push this down a little bit. It's a little too big of a door. There we go. Brought the scale down. That kind of helped a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and select these and make sure that these are kind of centered a little bit. There we go. And now you can see the various floors. Now the next step, again, you can always, don't forget to, maybe you want to throw in some final shadow work and stuff like that. So let's throw in some shadow work to give it the extra pop, and then we're going to scale it down, and then we should be done. We've already gone in an hour. I don't want to take too super long. So let's go ahead and add in that shadow work real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just bring the size up, change the blur. Let's bring the scale down, or bring the stroke size down. I think about there looks good. There looks good. Let's do that. And then we'll go ahead and throw in some of those shadows. There we go. Let's go with blur size a little bit bigger. That looks good. Let's bring the blur down so I can get that nice dark. There we go. I think that looks good. Add some shadows, copy, paste. Some shadows right there. Let's also add some shadows underneath each floor to kind of make it look like there's some overhang going there. Let's see here. Let's bring the blur down. I want to be able to get those shadows. Copy, paste. Copy, paste. Copy, paste. That way you can get that shadow work going. Okay, let's see here. Oh yeah, let's also do some shadow work. Let's make it to where these have some points. So one thing we can do is we can, let's go ahead and just put that path there for now, and then I'll go ahead and use another one. Let's bring up the scale, and I'm going to show that there is some kind of curve. So let's see here, this one. And I'm going to go ahead and put the shadow in like this. Technically, I should probably use a shape for that, but let's go ahead and bring the blur up, bring the scale down. Actually, you know what? I am going to use the shape tool for that. It'll probably work better that way. Let's do the shape tool. A little bit easier. So I'll go here. Here we go. Press enter. No merge shape. Go plus. Let's go ahead and turn the blur off, and let's just turn the opacity down quite a bit. And then I can kind of create this illusion of different sides of where the light source is. So copy, paste, move this over to here. And you'll have these kind of shadows to kind of show that you'll have different, that way, because right now, they look really kind of flat. And so to fix that problem, you just do that. You add in a little bit of shadow work on the side there. Let's scale this one down and put that on top as well. There we go. Let's scale it down. Let's see here. Right about there. Looks good. Oop, looks like I'll have to add just a little bit more to it. Okay. Oop, you know what? I'm just going to do the shape. It wasn't the right size. There we go. Press enter, plus, there we go. Okay. Adds a little bit of shadow. Oh, let's add one more on right here as well. And then we're going to be calling it good pretty soon here in just a moment. I'm going to scale it down real quick. See it because we are past the hour mark. Let's go ahead and take a step back. Let's look at it. So many more details can be added, but let's go ahead and just create the group. And then I'm going to scale it down real far down, all the way down to that 100% mark right here. And this is why it's important not to add a ton of details, because you're not going to see a lot of it. Now, obviously, this will be more crisp at the 16K, but you don't need to add a lot of details because, again, the stamp is not going to be this big, right, on your map, unless it's maybe some kind of inset, on the side. But you don't need to add a lot of details because, again, a lot of it's not going to be visible. So you just need to scale it down like that. So not complex. Just remember, you can always add export it to up to like 16K. So that should be really helpful. All right. Well, hey, that's it. Please let me know if you guys liked this live stream, because we can totally do future ones where we make more assets. Just know that, you know, obviously these kind of live streams can kind of carry on a little bit because doing your own art, making your own art is incredibly time consuming. Thankfully, we have the shape tool with textures and stamps that we can use for stroke. That helps to speed up the process. So definitely let me know if you want to see more content like this. I love making this custom art stuff. I think it's fun. Let me know if you want to see stuff like this again over on our Discord, and I will see you all on Friday for the next live stream. Please stay safe and healthy and merry map making, everyone. Really appreciate you all being here and enjoying the stream with me. Take care, okay? Bye.